there, it's Dave Duford again from Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com. And today we are going to talk about something called lead financing. Again, you may be listening to this video thinking, well, what's lead financing? So I'm going to explain what it is, define how it works, and then give you my take on why, in what cases you should consider it and what cases you shouldn't. So first of all, lead financing basically means either the agency or your life insurance carrier you're appointed with self-funds out of their own pool of capital for the payment of your leads. Okay, it's basically an uncollateralized credit card type of situation. They pay for the leads, you go out and work those leads, and then a portion of your commission dollars pays down that lead finance arrangement. So that's kind of cool in a sense, because where it's really beneficial is for agents that are broke. They don't have any money, they don't have any means to actually get up and running, and they need a little bit of help to get going. So why would I have a problem with that approach? Well, let me kind of give you some ideas. So first of all, it's like I said on my last video I did about the cost of free leads. There's no such thing as a free lunch, all right, guys? And the truth is that if you can get financing, there's usually going to be some sort of cost as it relates to your first year commission and renewals, or actually the cost of financing. So let me explain. So first of all, there is a credit risk to the agency or the carrier in the sense that if you go out there and you get all these leads and you never sell the first policy, that credit risk, that finance risk, is left to the agency to pay off. And then there's a risk that the agency goes out of business and that whole financing rolls up to the agent, up the actual carrier. So what happens is there's a financial risk to multiple parties. And a prudent upline, understanding that risk, is going to try to pad the risk levels with a higher profitability margin. So what that relates to directly as a new agent is that your commission levels typically are a lot lower because you've got free money to buy leads with, okay? And so that's the strategy these agents use. And I really don't blame the agency because they're at risk, okay? They give out free money. The truth is with credit, people don't treat credit the same as the actual dollar signs that they have, that they earn, that they work for. And so you're going to have a different mentality when people have free money to play with. And it's very dangerous, not just to the agency, but to you, the agent. If you don't pan out in this business, you're going to have a lot of money owed that you have to pay back. And you may not have that. And it may cause you financial misery and problems. So it's funny in the sense that I don't recommend the lead financing for the exact people it's really designed for, which is broke new agents. I say this over and over again. I wonder if it's really listened to, but if you get involved in final expense, you want to do it the right way, okay? If you fail out of this business, you want to fail the right way. Kind of sounds like a strange concept, but the thing is I don't want agents to jump into this business not prepared financially and then to go broke, okay? Because most agents grossly underestimate the kind of ambition and hard work it takes to succeed, because everybody takes licks. Everybody's going to have to take the bad in with the good. And if you're not financially prepared and mentally understanding that, you're going to have a really hard time and probably not be in a much better situation. So what's the solution here? So how do you look at this? So I say this in several videos. When you're getting involved in this business, to do it the right way, a new agent needs about $3,000 to $5,000 in direct mail capital. I can go into detail. You can look at my other videos about direct mail. But it takes about 5 weeks of consistent investment to start getting your returns back on your direct mail. And so the process is that you just got to have that money available, because some weeks are good, some weeks aren't so good. It's the same lead piece. It's the reality of being in the sales business. But you've got to be properly funded, because the crux and the foundation of this business is having people to see. No people to see, no business to be had, and you're out. And so if you get involved in lead financing, again, what happens is that you'll pay somewhere, okay? The agency has to subsidize the losses that they get through a padding financially to cover that. And that basically means is the risk is socialized in a sense. It's spread amongst all the agents in the form of a lower contract, maybe in kind of terms and conditions. Maybe you're vested, you're non-vested in your business, so if you quit or you switch agencies, the renewals become the managers. There's little ways that these agencies screw you over if you're not careful. And that's why I mentioned why lead financing is just something you really got to be careful of, because it is an advantage on the surface, but underneath, once you peel the onions back, there's usually something else going on. So what I really recommend, if the only reason to use lead financing is if you're an experienced agent that's gone under hard times, if you've got the skill set, if you've got the production experience, but if your money's tied up, if you're going through a divorce, if you've been bankrupt and financially you're really struggling, you know that this business is about numbers. It's about leads. It's about seeing the people. And if you can find somebody that will help finance you, help keep you going, that's a different scenario, because you know that you are good at this business. You know that you can succeed, and maybe you just need a little bit of leverage there to get you going again before you go back to paying leads with your own money. I can see that situation making sense, because you know what you're doing. The new agent has no idea what to expect out of this business, so there's a lot more risk that's unrealized for new agents. Now, I want to go back to one last thing before I end this call. Even though I was discussing lead financing, the biggest reason I'm against it is because, and I mentioned this, is how a person looks at credit or extended lines of credit versus money that they actually earn. I mean, we can look at the financial crisis in 2008, when people were vastly extended beyond the reasons, financially involved in debt of all sorts that they couldn't afford, that they got way deep into when interest rates were unbelievably low and thought they could last forever. And what has happened is that with credit, when you use other people's money, the nature of credit is that you are looser with it, you're not as prudent, you're not as thoughtful, you're not as careful. And as an outcome of that, you're not necessarily going to care as much in the same breath, because it's not your money. It's not something that you worked hard for. You were able to get that line of credit, but there's usually some level, like sometimes it's marginal with some people, sometimes it's major, but there's a disconnect with the money that's given to you versus the money that you had to work your ass off for, okay? So I always try to get agents that if they can fund their own leads with their own money, it's going to have, it's hard to verbalize, but you have a different mentality when you put your money on the line, okay? When you work hard for that $5,000, you could spend that $5,000 on a vacation, down payment on a new car, something nice, something fun, something tangible. When you take $5,000 and you risk that on a marketing campaign, you are invested, all right? It's scary, okay? But by God, you're getting that money back out of it if you really care about making sure of being prudent about your money. And see, that's powerful. That has an exponential effect on an agent that's new to this business. It gets them out there and motivated to work that money out of those leads and then have profitability left over so they can reinvest again in more leads. So again, I mention all this because the bottom line is you want to get started in final expense the right way. You don't want to get wrapped up in some kind of finance scheme where you're getting nickeled and dimed either through the cost of financing or through a lower commission level or some kind of terms and conditions that prevents you from realizing the best that you can. You want to get involved and do things the right way. There are ways to generate leads without expense in the form of money. It takes time to buy these leads, but not capital. And I can explain that to you if you're kind of really interested in this business, you don't have any money, but you're looking for a way to get involved so that you can bankroll. I do have different ways that I don't necessarily talk about publicly that you can actually do and generate leads without very much expense. So again, my name is David Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com. I want to thank you very much for listening to this important video. Any issues or questions that you have, check my website out, go to the contact page, fill the form out. I'll get back to you shortly. In the meantime, check out my YouTube videos, all my articles on my website. Thanks for listening. Take care.